Hey there, this is Andrew, and I am bringing you some Keyforge news right off of keyforging.com's front page. And we're just going to go through it really quick. The gist of it is that Ghost Galaxy has updated some cards that were previously spoiled. Some of them are just for clarity, a few are to improve the gameplay. So, with that said, let's just go over the update. You can find this on keyforging.com. It's currently the first article you'll see, but yeah, the title is "The Winds of Change Brings the Spoils Again." And the first category of changes are renaming some cards because of just to avoid confusion, really. So in the case of some of the tokens, they were named the same as traits. If you don't know, traits are the words that appear underneath the name of the card. So you would get the name of the card directly beneath it. It would say creature, or in this case, token creature. And then beneath that, you'd have traits like Getrukia and Merchant or Goblin. And instead of keep the card name Goblin or Merchant, they've changed the names to be a little different to avoid confusion. So that if a card says destroy each trader, or if a card says destroy each merchant, you won't have to wonder, hey, is this destroying each card called merchant or each creature with the merchant trait? So this is a huge improvement just to avoid that confusion. They replaced the rebel trait with the trait Ironics to be a little more thematic as well. So it has a similar effect in avoiding confusion, but in this case, that's the direction they decided to go with it. And they changed Scout to Prospector because there already was a card called Scout in a previous set, which was an untamed action card. So this is good. Okay, and then Tengaika is one of the rare cards. It's the rare card in Unfathomable that would bring in a special token, and that token is Cultist. And they reworked it a little bit. I guess in playtesting, it just wasn't making it to the table very often, which wasn't fun. So they want it to be balanced. Hopefully, this doesn't make it overpowered. I think they probably have thought about that in testing. But the old version, you had to have 5 cultists, and then you could play it. Now you have to have 4 cultists, 4 or more cultists. So the threshold's lower, and what the cultists do is they actually ward the Tangaika when they destroy themselves, which is a pretty cool effect because it means you have a greater chance of keeping Tangaika on the board. Yeah, this is pretty great. The one bummer is that I think previously the cultists could bring Tangaika back from the discard pile, and that's not possible anymore, but this is probably more fair. Okay, Disciple is is Sanctum's special token creature, and it used to have an effect that it couldn't do stuff if it had a non-monk neighbor. It couldn't be used. And then it was 3 power and 2 armor, which is pretty big for a token creature. So I guess the problem was that people often ended up in a situation where they had a bunch of unusable creatures on the board. That's no fun. So it's been reworked. They don't have that restriction on use, but they start at 1 power and they get additional power and armor based on having monk neighbors. So if you get them all together, they become more powerful. And then the one maybe downside to this, slight downside, is that newer players often struggle to keep track of plus power effects and will use counters where they shouldn't. And so this could be a little confusing for newer players, but it also could provide an opportunity for them to get used to doing things the right way, only using counters where the game tells you to, and otherwise just remembering how the effects work. So I think that's okay. The after fight and after reap change has been talked about. It's happening. This is really good. I hope that I assume they're changing it even on reprinted cards. I sure hope so. But essentially, cards that would have said reap, do something, will now say after reap, do that thing. Or cards that would have said fight, do something, now say after fight. And they point out in the article, after fight is probably the more important change because people got really confused about that. But after reap is still a nice clarification because it makes it clear you get the amber and then you do this. So, and ultimately, a lot of the confusion I think goes back to just early on in Keyforge, there actually wasn't a lot of clarity even among the designers about exactly how that worked, and so they were a little slow early on to release that information and to be very clear about it. So anyway, yeah, much clearer now. That is a great improvement for the game, and especially for new players who haven't sunk a lot of time into reading all the FAQ entries in the rulebook. Okay, they made some tweaks to power and rarity. They explain why in the article. It essentially had to do with making sure that the number of creatures is somewhat consistent across houses. The average number of creatures that'll show up in a deck. So you don't have some houses that tend to have fewer or more creatures. And then, so what they did is they made Belligerent Guard a common. Had Belligerent Guard been spoiled yet? I guess it must have been, but I don't remember seeing it. It's an 8-power giant that enters play ready, but when you play it, your opponent draws a card. I like that. And I do think Shopping Spree had been spoiled before. Anyway, so they made Belligerent Guard a common and Shopping Spree an uncommon. So they swapped them. It fits it. It's great. Oh, and Belligerent Guard, I guess, was a higher power previously. Now it's 8 because it's common, which that makes sense. They got rid of a spoiled card, Art Project. They tried to rework it, but just couldn't figure out a good way. So they might come back to it in the future, but it is not going to be in this set for now. That's good. I'm really glad that they were willing to make those kinds of changes. That really is actually important to make sure it's a good, fun, healthy set and good, fun, healthy game. And so I appreciate them making that choice, even though it probably meant they had to come up with something else from scratch. A couple other things that they mentioned. Cadet got reworked previously. I think it was Destroyed Ward, its most powerful neighbor. Now it's Destroyed Ready, its most powerful neighbor. I really like that effect, and that actually goes well with the Star Alliance theme, so I'm pretty happy about that. Obviously, the downside is that doesn't do much if it happens on your opponent's turn, most likely, but it's still cool, so I'm good with it. And it probably is more valuable to do on your turn than warding something would be. Okay, Edict got reworded really just to say after a creature reaps, the next time a creature is used that turn, it can't reap, so it won't apply across turns. People were worried about that. Better to just fix the wording. Election used to have yay would mean destroy all the creatures, and nay would mean don't destroy anything. But now it's been I guess everybody was just always voting nay, so it kind of fizzled and never did anything. And now it's been reworked so that if nay is chosen, you destroy each artifact. Yeah, that seems great. That's more fun, forces a decision. And if you're in a situation where you don't want to do either of those, then it makes sense to just discard this, right? So that seems better. Mark 2 Generator enters play ready now. It was just too slow, so that seems fun. I don't mind that. And this is, the controversial one to me. This is the one mistake I think they've made in this whole thing is they changed Phalanx Leader to. It used to say you would make a token creature to Phalanx Leader's right, and it has this after fight, after reap effect that applies to creatures on its right. And they said that didn't match because it's facing to the left. But I just have to say, the creature's called a leader, so you would think that it's facing, if it's leading, maybe it would be facing away from the creatures that it's leading. So it would actually make sense for the creatures to be on its right while it's facing left. But anyway, Ghost Galaxy disagreed. They changed it to say left instead of right. It's a little silly, but all good, and I don't think it matters very much one way or the other. So uh, I guess I'm glad they care about those details, even though I think in this case they were backwards. Anyway, all right. Well, that's it. I'm excited. I am sitting over here going, where is my restricted list for Alliance? Because yeah, got to do some planning, and it's hard to plan when you don't know what's going to happen. So really, 2 weeks now until 2 weeks from yesterday, I expect to be flying out, and so having some of these details will be really helpful in planning how that trip's going to go. So anyway, that's that. Hope you enjoyed this, and I really overall am pleased with the changes that Ghost Galaxy is making and the way they seem to be handling this stuff. So that's great. Yeah, thanks for watching, and get out there and forge some keys.